And with the next pick, we are on the clock. What's up, everybody? It is the Next Pick podcast back in your ears for another fun edition of our show. We are part of the SB Streamer podcast, which is part of the Fantrax and Fantrax HQ family of podcasts. And we're really excited to be here today. I am, as you know, one half of your hosting duo, Mr. Drew Wheeler. And with me, as always, the wonderful, the affable, the subject of Robin Sparkle's song, P.S. I Love You. It is Peyton Skinner. Peyton, how are you doing?
I appreciate the intro as always. I'm doing pretty well. It's been a pretty good week so far. I'm kind of switching it up time wise. We're jumping on here a little bit early, so that'll be nice. But yeah, doing good overall. Excited, kind of. We're getting close to that midway point. All-star voting starting to happen, so really starting to see substantial data points with players and life's just good right now. It's hot. I will say
It's
that
hot.
it is
It's hot.
hot. Where we both are in the heat of it right now, but it's been good.
What's the roughest it's been there for you, like heat-wise?
Yeah, so I think it's gotten up to 99, but then when you factor in the humidity and the whole feels like thing, it's pushed over into the triple digits a couple times. So it's been pretty toasty the past week and a half or so. What about
Yeah.
you?
About the same. The bank across the street from my office likes to pretend that it's like 104, but I think they're playing that whole feels like gimmick a little too tightly. So I'm going to say we've been about 99 as well. It has been sweltering,
Yeah.
though, my friend, and it is nothing to brag about or nothing to be excited about for sure. But something that we both can be excited about is anybody watching currently on either Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch will notice you have a new backdrop because as we have been pushing for the first 5 episodes of the show, you have finally moved into your new home, friend.
That is right. I have. And my backdrop is non-existent right now. I have to I actually don't even have a desk right now. I've just been kind of working off of a table and have to completely reset up the office and get everything back in order eventually. But the podcast can't wait, so had to get going anyways.
These listeners,
But
they cannot be denied.
that's
Every
right.
2 weeks on the nose, and so we are a little off the nose. We're kind of on the cheek, but that's just fine. Something else we can be excited about, my friend, is that you and I were both recently invited to participate in a mid-season Dynasty mock draft with Dynasty One Stop. How cool!
Yeah, super fun. I've really enjoyed it. A lot of the guys that we've started to build a relationship with over the probably this season especially, but over the years, just having that chance, it's been fun. Some chatter and kind of mixing it up a little bit, but also it's not as stressful as a real draft. So doing the
No.
mock is just a lot. I feel like it's a lot more fun because you're kind of lighthearted. You can talk about you know players and not worry about giving your strategy away, things of
Yeah,
that nature. So
100%. I'm with you for sure on that one, man. It has been fun. And real quick, I'm going to just kind of bounce through some of the names that I've worked with in the past or I'm playing in leagues with currently, whatever. Michael Waterloo, Eric Cross, uh, let's see, Jesse and Drew Sperling. All those guys are in Highlander, so have dealt with them for half a season now. I guess they've dealt with me is probably more accurate. Of course, Nathan and Tucker. Uh, there's lots of good dudes in this, and even the guys that I'm not that familiar with, like this Prospect Peyton character. These type guys that I don't know as well. It's nice to get to know them, and like you kind of alluded to, the chatter in our group chat on Twitter has been something else. These are a fun group of dudes.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I said, I feel like it's just lighthearted in general, and I've really enjoyed that. And I think we say it so often, but I really can't stress it enough. I think it's just so fun getting to collaborate with other people that are doing the same type of work as us, and knowing the amount of hours that we put in, and some of these guys are putting in way more hours than you and I are, and
For sure.
it's just such a fun opportunity to get to be involved with them and mix it up.
100%, man. Well, for you all at home who may not have been following along, I know I haven't tweeted yet about the results of the draft thus far, other than after the first round. I know you made a tweet about your team kind of at the current point that it was, but we're going to go through our picks. You can kind of, Peyton, give me some thoughts on what you had in mind for your selection, what you ended up doing, if you had any, regrets or any kind of certain plans or schemes going, and we'll take it. How about that, my friend?
Yeah, that sounds great. Like I said, it's been kind of a fun draft. I think that I've been trying to be very intentional about going young. I think very often when I'm doing dynasty drafts, I end up being the guy that's like win now, just because it's funny because you and I are both dynasty and prospect centered people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always hilarious seeing different people diving in for the younger pieces, and then I'm like, okay, well, if no one's going to take Mike Trout, I guess I'll take Mike Trout. Or if no one's going to take Paul Goldschmidt, I'll take Paul Goldschmidt, just players like that. And so this, with this draft, I've been really intentional. Hey, let's really try and go on the opposite end. Let's really go young. Let's kind of have fun with it. That's been my whole mantra this draft. So kind of started out right out of the gates and mixed it up a little bit. And I actually took Jordan Alvarez 7th overall. I don't think it's a super hot take of a pick. I think he's obviously been one of the best hitters in baseball. I'm not getting much speed, obviously, but everything else he's checking the boxes and some. So super excited there. And then kind of came back around. I was really hoping for McClanahan and ended up settling with Alcantara instead. But Sandy's, another young ace, going to go deep in games, get you tons of quality innings. I think the strikeouts might not be as high, but everything else is going to be on par. And this league doesn't have wins, so, I don't think there'll be too much of a differential there between what you'd expect McClanahan to gain and Sandy to lose on the wins-loss column. But yeah, it's been fun. I think those were kind of my first two picks. And then probably going to start going really young with some prospects here, flying off the board with my next couple. But right now I have kind of rounded out my roster. I grabbed Cedric Mullins, who's my oldest player right now, and then went with Spencer Torkelson and Logan Webb. But yeah, Mullins, my old man in the room, got to really bring that average age up. Why don't you?
Yeah, really. Cedric, you old fart. What are you thinking? I love it.
Killing me, Smalls.
For sure. So I'll tell you, man, your strategy and mine couldn't be more different. It's been
Notice that.
It's been fun, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, TM Next Pick Podcast. Whenever you said it's just about having a good time, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at this as if this is a dynasty league that's genuinely starting right now, and I want to win. And so, what am I doing? I'm picking guys that'll win. First pick was Michael Waterloo, and who else but me to be right beside him? He actually tweeted at me and was saying, oh, I'm stuck right beside you again. And I was like, that's really mean way to say that. But at 1 overall, he took Juan Soto, who would have been my choice had it gone any other way. But at 2, I decided to shake it up and pick Julio Rodriguez. And
there you go.
There I go. There goes Drew doing Drew things again. So had a good time with Julio because, we've said, and like I've said a couple times as well, I think it's going to be next year he's going top 10. I can't see a world where it's not realistically happening. And a dynasty draft particularly, I was really excited to get in there. Anyway, may have been a little bit premature, but that's fine. I'm happy to do it and glad that I could get it done. Coming back around, I knew that there would be some guys that went that I wasn't, I was aiming for kind of loosely. The one guy that I would have loved was Garrett Cole, actually, at 215. and he actually went 12, so 212, 3 picks before I would have taken him. And I hated that he was gone. A couple of other guys that I kind of had my eye on were Manny Machado. I was curious to see what would happen with Mookie Betts, Jazz Chisholm. Of course, you took Sandy Alcantara, who would have been my choice after Cole. And then Manoah was the choice, kind of Manoah or McClanahan after Cole and Alcantara. So after all these pitchers had gone, I was left with Francisco Lindor, who I do like, is still very young and, fills shortstop for me in a really strong way. He's performing this year for a very strong team. I liked it. I was very happy with that selection. And then hitting that curve, Michael chose Byron Buxton and Austin Riley. Riley was my next choice again. And then so I decided, okay, let's go pitcher, and I'll take Aaron Nola. This is not the first time I've taken Nola. Yeah, my boy. He is still ridiculously young, like deceptively young even. And I'm really, really tickled I got him to kind of anchor my staff. But sadly, right after Aaron Nola, so I picked Nola 3-2. At 3-3, Hunter Green off the board. And the tears were flowing, my friend. The tears were flowing.
I felt for you. When I saw that pick, I was like, oh, man, poor guy.
It was devastating.
How shocked were you, though, that he went that early?
I mean, I don't want to bury the pick because I love Hunter Green, obviously. But if I'm going to look at pitchers who I would have taken before Green that have went after him, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's probably easier to look at ones that I would have taken after Green. I don't know.
Yeah.
Severino, maybe. The injuries are a little concerning. I know that you and Eric both were in the market for Severino based on your most recent message to the group.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. I like Severino fine, but I don't know. But anyway, no, love Hunter Green, so it's so bizarre to be saying anything negative about him, but it was early. Then again, this is the guy that took Julio Rodriguez second overall, so what do I know? Plus,
hey, I love the pick, I'll be honest. I mean, me and you both are J-Rod truthers to the T, so not too surprising that I love the pick there, but I'm right there with you. I think this guy's just going to keep climbing, and, this time next year, I think there's easy argument that he's in that elite tier. Whether he's at 2 or not, you could make an argument, but I think there's plenty of tools that you've seen to justify him being included in that elite group of, tier 1.
For sure.
It was a fun pick, like you said.
Thank you. I'd like to think I have a couple more fun picks coming up as soon as my next one, but the next pick, love that. Anyway, so the next pick following Green in between the two of us would have been your third rounder, who was Cedric Mullins that you discussed. And you've already kind of referenced that Mullins was the oldest player, but he's still producing. And he's not quite as hot out of the gate as he was last year. But Mullins is playing still very well, and he's what I would have expected. Now, that said, your fourth round pick, 410, was far more interesting to me. Not a surprise because, again, we're both big fans of this guy. Peyton, you chose at 410 Spencer Torkelson. Can you talk just a second about Torque and why he was your choice?
Yeah, so it's pretty funny. Coming around the turn with Mullins, I really wanted Riley Green. And Eric Cross literally picked before me, grabs Green. And so I'm like, okay, well, not really sure. I didn't want to just pivot and go pitcher because I had just grabbed my ace.
Right.
And my biggest thought was, well, I went Jordan first, so I kind of need speed. So that's kind of where I was leaning with Mullins over the action. It's funny, the other guy I was looking at there was Andrew Vaughn, who's been tearing it up. And, kind of similarly viewed as Torkelson. I think Torkelson was higher than Vaughn by most people, coming into the season. But they're very similar types of players.
Absolutely.
So of course, Vaughn went, around the turn and wasn't there. And I'm sitting there looking at it and kind of was going between Adley Rushman and Torkelson with my pick there. And kind of what you said, I think I'm just sitting there and, neither guy's necessarily lighting it up in the
Right.
major leagues right now. But I think that both of these guys have, more than earned my respect and my faith in them to write them off after, just 100 at bats, or in Rutschman's case, whatever 50 at bats or
Sure.
however few he's at. And if you look at Torkelson, I do think that he's slightly getting, he's starting to show some signs of life recently, starting to, hit for a little bit more power, driving guys in. It was super fun seeing him drive Riley Green in the other day. I was like, man, I've been waiting a while to see that happen
Oh
in a
yeah.
major league game. So, again, just thought it was a fun pick. I actually don't have a lot of shares of Torkelson in many leagues. So it was super fun grabbing him and seeing what that would look like. Again, trying to stick with the younger theme of players. So that's kind of where I was leaning.
Absolutely. I love the pick. I thought it was a good one. Obviously, you said you were choosing between he and Adley, and then Eric decided, he hasn't done enough damage to you. He's going to take Adley right there at 411.
Right
Good.
after, man.
Yeah, yeah, right after. So my basic thought as we left 3-2 from Drew land on the elbow and then went back towards the center where you're at, ideally speaking, I would have seen Freddie Freeman continue to slide. So I want to ask you, at
Mhm.
this point in the draft, if Freeman had made it back to you and you were looking at Torkelson, Rutschman, Freeman, would that have thrown any wrenches into your plan?
Yeah, I was stunned to see Freeman fall as far as he did. Like,
Likewise.
again, it's super funny. Like, I'm sitting there. Obviously, I picked Jordan first. And then coming around the turn for my second pick, I was similar to you. I'm sitting there in the draft room. I was like, if this was an actual league, no questions asked, I'm taking Garrett Cole. Like, I wouldn't have even thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, third round coming back, it would have been Freddie Freeman sitting right there. And then I'm sitting there like, wow, my team's ready to contend right out of the gates. I got
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Freeman, Jordan Alvarez, and Garrett Cole. Like, that's pretty baller start. But
For
I
sure.
just told myself, like, man, I'm not going old. And so I passed on Cole to Alcantara instead. And then kind of same thing with Freeman. I think in a normal setting, I would have taken Freeman over Mullins probably even at my third pick. So if he
Sure.
made it back to me at 4, I would have had to take him. Like, I know I'm trying to stay young, but the value there is just unbelievable. And so, but yeah, it's been funny. I think a lot of people are going young in the draft and trying to, just spice things up and probably follow the same theme that you and I were saying, is having some fun. There's been some really fun kind of hot hand picks. Tommy
Oh
Edman
yeah.
went really early. Dansby Swanson went pretty early, just because he's been tearing it up as of late. So a couple picks like that, I love to see, just kind of like we said, guys in the industry that a lot of people are following and seeing what they're doing. And then it's like, hey, this guy took this guy at that type of price point,
Right.
Hunter Green, perfect example,
That's a perfect example.
Guy's been lighting it up recently. And I think that it's fun seeing him fly off the board that early and, shock a group of industry guys even. It's not like, it is just some random dude that just grabbed him, is someone that does this and writes,
Right. Right.
articles and puts content out there. And he's like, man, I love Green. I'm planting my flag. Let's go. And I love seeing that. So that was fun.
It is. Absolutely. You're right. Stuff like that is so much fun. And looking at the board again, just kind of thinking about like we were talking about Freddie Freeman. You said my even taking him over Mullins, and I remember seeing Freeman on the board when I took Lindor and thinking let's go a little younger. That's okay. I can wait. And then Nola, let's go a little. I need a pitcher. Plus let's go a little younger. I can wait. And then about the time that we got to, the end of the draft, the end of the arm, rather, the opposite arm, and I think it was about time for Jake to pick, and he picked, okay, Bieber. I was like, man, could this really happen? Could Freeman come all the way back? And he, of course, did not. Drew Sperling took him. Drew's team is something else, by the way. Trey Turner in the first round, Manny Machado, Freddie Freeman, Trevor Story. Ugh. Ugh.
Talk about win now.
Yeah. Way to go. One for the Drew team. I love it. If he wins, I win because we're both named Drew. So after you took Torque, we fell back to Drew after a couple of picks. And I decided if I can't get Freeman, I'll get the next best thing and got Paul Goldschmidt, who I would say has probably been the hottest hitter in baseball this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
So
he
fourth round,
Judge,
Paul Goldschmidt.
Probably.
Yeah, Judge.
Those are the two. But I mean, pick your poison.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll pick Goldschmidt. So he lighting the world on fire. Obviously a little older, but I'm fine with it. Again, Dynasty, somebody's got to win. Why not me? Then looping back around, Michael chose George Springer, who was in my top 5 of available, O'Neal Cruz, who was in my top 5 of available, and we got to Drew again, and I figured let's go pitcher one more time, and I took Kyle Wright. I did that one for the Braves fan in me. Kyle Wright is a player who I've watched several starts of this year, and every one I'm left more and more impressed. He looks to be putting on the shoes that we thought he'd have on after Vanderbilt and when the Braves drafted him, and I'm so happy for him to see it happen. Wright's a guy that I could definitely see going probably top 100 next year. So to see him here within, the top, I guess it would be top 80. Yes, so he'd have gone, let's see, so 74th to me. So that's awesome. Still some great picks going. And then to round it out, you selected Logan Webb, who I'm a big fan of. Can you tell me a little bit about Logan Webb? I know that it's going to be preaching to the choir with me, but anybody at home that wants to know about Logan Webb, tell them all about it.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thought process, sticking to the young trend and looking at there was a lot of aces available, but most of them were older. And so I was like, hey, here's an opportunity to grab a second ace who's also extremely young and, a guy that's going to go deep into games. And, I think the strikeouts are a little bit limited in terms of upside. But, if you look at some of his starts, he's, especially recently, he's starting to really garner a lot of swing and miss and rack up some whiffs. So, maybe that's something that's still going to be, still to come type of thing with him. But either way, I think we've seen enough over the last year and this year combined to where I'm buying in. I think if I'm getting him as my second arm, I'm stoked, Yeah. Same thing with you with Wright. I think that was a super fun pick. And, he's the type of guy that is kind of, if he can continue to garner in the control and show that those issues are in the past for him, I think he's a budding ace, Everything about him looks to be that way. So, we'll see. Obviously, I'm hopeful as a Braves fan, but as a Kyle Wright fan as well, and I mentioned it before on the podcast, I've absolutely loved this guy. Even when he was in the low of lows, I was one of the guys that was like, man, I still believe in this guy, and it's just super fun seeing him putting it together, having a really strong start to the year, and I think it's been fun watching a lot of these younger arms, especially flourish and kind of pop onto the scene, because I think, coming out of last year, especially in Dynasty, most of the aces were kind of on the older end other than Corbin Burns, because, Bieber had a little bit of question mark. Aaron Nola had like a weird year last year. I think a lot of people weren't worried about him, but some people were like, oh, well, we're not really sure what to expect. And there was, a handful of guys like that where it was like, okay, we aren't really sure what's going to happen here. Zach Gallen obviously has some injury history. but has a ton of upside opportunity. He actually went right after my Logan Webb pick. He was another guy I was looking at. So, but yeah, it's been a blast, man. I've really enjoyed the draft so far. It's been fun seeing different guys kind of take their shot per se. I think that just across the board, I've noticed people tend to be a little bit more gung ho because it's kind of a mock and it's mid season, and people aren't drafting right now, so it's just fun doing a draft. After you spend so much time in the off season and preseason drafting, then you're actually doing your drafts. I'm like, man, I'm burnt out of drafts. But then you kind of miss it after a few months. It's like, oh, I want to draft. So when he sent it out, I was like, oh, that'd be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah. Being back in the draft saddle, so to say, is a lot of fun. I recommend that, do some mock drafts, do some stuff on your, there's mock drafts all the time on your sites or various websites. I think Couch Managers is still alive. Do you remember that website?
I don't.
Okay, Couch Managers. Shout out to the real OGs that remember Couch Managers. There's some various websites out there. I'm sure you can find some mocks on at all times. But anyhow, so that's our teams thus far. We have each made 5 picks altogether. Peyton, it seems like you're pretty happy with your team.
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
I think I'm there as well.
For you.
Yeah, I definitely am. I'm at that point in the draft where I'm like, I could have done better. There's people I should have picked instead. Yeah. But then by the end of the draft, I'm pretty pleased with how they go. So I just have to learn to trust the process with me in drafts. So anyhow, speaking of trusting the process, we have finally the process has finally delivered some trust, and we have presented to the members of the SP Streamer Elite Discord our top 100 plus prospect rankings. Peyton has done a fabulous job. He has done the aggregation machines business, and we finally have it. The top 100 plus prospects of me and you, SP Streamers Dynasty team. So I'm going to pull it up if you want to do the same, and we're going to do a little bit of chatting about those players.
Let's do it.
I've got mine pulled up. If you have yours as well, sir. And
ready to roll.
Our Discord has been, I don't want to say on fire, but it's been on fire about these rankings since we posted. You posted at 10:06 a.m. And thus far, we've seen quite a bit of reaction. Lots of stuff from different industry guys, from our fellow writers, from, of course, our readers who we're very excited to hear from always. And I'm excited to jump into it. So Peyton, tell me, buddy, what exactly was some of the players you want to talk about after looking at these composite rankings?
Yeah, it's been fun. Even when I was building just the composite list, I was looking through it, and of course, we both submitted kind of a top 100, but the reason it was 100 plus compositely is, there's guys you left off and there's guys I left off. And so, once we combine it all, I think, what were we at? 125?
127. Yeah.
127. Okay. Yeah. So a little over 125. And I think it's just funny thinking about there's 27 guys that one of us or both of us, one or the other of us didn't rank. That's what that means. So that's pretty crazy. Just thinking about, I would say the two of us are pretty similarly minded just in terms of the tools that we prioritize with prospects and kind of things that we look for just from, you and I talking and sharing insight. It's funny. I feel like we're pretty similar, but obviously even two people that are similarly wired and similarly minded when it comes to prospect evaluation still have differences. So I think that's just super cool. It speaks a lot about the prospect industry, just baseball in general, and how hard it is to find prospects and how hard it is to draft. You think about major league teams, you think about, oh man, it'd be so easy. You just draft player X. He's going to be the best one. But, half the time, the guy you think is going to be a stud, I may not even have him on my radar yet,
Exactly.
And vice versa. So that's just been really fun looking at. We had obviously some of the top end guys the more, I guess, bona fide prospects that were more of a shocker to me. But then as we got further down, it was really interesting to me seeing the big differentiation we had. One guy, I know he's been generating a lot of buzz recently, but I wanted to talk about actually two San Diego guys to start out. One of which is Mr. Esteury Ruiz, and the other is Robert Hassel III. I think we kind of were on the flip side with both of these guys. And I know you and I have messaged a little bit privately about Hassel, so it's pretty funny seeing it come out. And then others in the Discord also start messaging in curiosity. But
Yeah.
yeah, I want to talk about both of these guys. I think it's funny because generally speaking, I'm not nearly as high on Hassel as a lot of the industry is. And then when I saw your ranking, I was like, oh, wow, I thought I was low on the guy. So with that said, I mean, I just want to let you jump in and share kind of your thoughts a little bit, what you're seeing. I know, even since you published this, to be clear with some of our listeners right now, Drew and I have talked, and he was like, yeah, I really do think this guy was probably too low for me. And I think that that's just part of the game that we play. But, what was your thought process when you were building your rankings? And, as you've even said and thought about, maybe this guy does deserve a bump up. What are you seeing now that makes you think that, that you weren't seeing a week or 2 weeks ago?
I think it's just more of a sample size of success. And that's been something that I've said over and over and over and over. Anybody that's listened to 5 episodes worth of us talking has heard me say, I just want to see it a little more. I want to see more of the hits. And of course, Bobby Barrels, as they're going to start calling this guy, give him a cool nickname. And of course, he starts hitting the ball. So I forget what the exact tweet was, but I remember tweeting or sending you a DM on Twitter and saying, yeah, okay, 429 OBP in June for Robert Hassel III. On, when was this? 3 days ago. 3 hits, including a double, and stole a base. And my exact comment to you was 3 rolling eye emojis with a laughing, crying emoji. And then he's making me look like a fool one at bat at a time, because we texted even more previously to this. And you were, like you said, you kind of registered that shock. Like, I thought I was low on this guy, but Drew, he like barely made your top 100. And so, yeah, I guess it was more just, I want to see it. I've heard he's good. And obviously, this is a kid from Tennessee. I don't mean to disrespect Robert Hassel, but, this is still somebody who I think I wanted to see more from. And the game has changed. And as I said just before we went on the air, the last thing I said in the Dynasty channel, because our friend Trey Batten Huge said, okay, explain yourself with this Hassel spot. And I was presented into evidence exhibit A, which was a screenshotted proof of my intent to move him up in our next update, which was the very Twitter conversation you and I had. So I screenshotted our DMs just saying, look, like, I swear this is going to change. I swear. But somebody that I would love to talk about is Esteury Ruiz, because this is a guy who, Peyton, I know you have been reading Command and Control. Esteury Ruiz is currently number 2 on the Command and Control list if you're not reading and following. And I'm really proud that in April I was able to pick this guy out and say, this is a guy that we need to be on, like, immediately as like a top 50 prospect. This is a guy that we need to be talking about as an amazing baseball prospect, an amazing fantasy prospect. And even looking at my ranking of 36 right now, I think it's too low. I think that I'm going to have probably a trio of Padres looking at our roster, or I'm sorry, not our roster, at our rankings. Wood, Hassel, and Ruiz all need to be bumped up, but Ruiz will be bumped above any of them. I want to say that Ruiz will be I'm just scrolling through looking for other Padres. I'm not opposed to saying I like Ruiz more than I like CJ Abrams at the moment.
Wow.
He's something else. That's a player that I really, truly believe in. And I think that what we've seen for a long time, everybody kind of thought of Ruiz as just a rabbit. He was going to run. He was going to steal bases. He was going to be a, kind of a prototypical leadoff or 8-9 hole guy. But he has developed real power. And, granted, the atmosphere in AAA especially in the parks he's playing in, is a little exaggerated. But I think if we get a Tommy Edman impression every year from Estuary Ruiz, 12, 15 homers, 28 to 35 stolen bases with a 270 average, I want that player. I want him pretty bad, matter of fact. So that's a guy that I'm targeting. And so, yeah, when you're looking at the next update, which I know I'll update my portion of the rankings probably next when I do Command and Control for June, Ruiz will be going up, but Robert Hassel will go up as well. Please stop beating me over the head about Robert Hassel at the universe. So, yes, I love that. That was a good point of topic for us to have there for sure. Here's one that I'd like to bring up if it's possible, sir. Looking at a difference here between I feel like I lift a guy up and you go even further. And I'm talking about two guys specifically. Gunnar Henderson, who is without a doubt probably my favorite prospect in baseball at the moment, and Jordan Walker, who I started so low on, and I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to give this guy 19. 19. That's where Drury's got him. Peyton says, hold my beer. Third. Peyton, what in the world? Third? Explain yourself.
Yeah, man. This guy just, him and Henderson both. I agree with you. I want to say that. I love Henderson. Everything about him has just blown me away this year. But, man, I just can't talk about Jordan Walker enough right now. This guy's just blown me away with the bat. And he's so young in Double-A, just killing the ball. And the craziest thing is if you ask most people what's the best tool that Jordan Walker has, they would say his power. And if you look at his line, the power's the thing that's not showing up right now. Everything else is elite. So in my opinion, it's like, okay, when the power comes, it's going to be ridiculous. Yeah. And everything about the guy just shows me that he's going to be a stud slugger. Like if you just, the walk to strikeout ratio is what really does it for me when I look at it. I think that's kind of where I'm like, okay, I don't really have a choice but to elevate this guy into the elite of the elite for me, because he's walking at a 12% clip and he's only 22%, 21.7. And that's not bad at all for a 20-year-old at Double-A. I'll take that any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I love it. I love that.
So,
phrase.
It's just it's been really impressive. I think I am probably one of the more bullish guys on him in the industry. I love everything I've seen about him, and I kind of how I was with Luciano. I think this guy's just caught my eye, and I just I'm gonna keep him at that point until he does something to justify me moving him down a little bit. So that's where I'm at with him. And Henderson, same thing. I think especially in Henderson's case, he's doing it at AAA now. Yes. And he's also a guy that, Walker has shown the ability to steal bases, but no one's really expecting him to do that long term when you look at the body type there. Whereas with Henderson, I really expect this guy to be a potential 5-category stud. And he can be a dynamo, one of those guys that is helping you across the board in every category in fantasy. And those guys are invaluable. We've seen his teammate, Cedric Mullins, last year going 30-30. Like, that's the type of guy I could see him being realistically, and those guys, you don't see those guys very often. So I think it was totally justified for both of us to elevate Henderson. We both have him top 10 now, which is crazy. But, I think it's totally justified. And I think that he's been just so impressive, really.
He has. You're absolutely right. So just today, Peyton, I was on the RotoWire Prospect podcast earlier in the day that we're recording this, I should say, with James and Jesse talking about the Highlander League and our underdog selections, and mine was Gunnar Henderson. So we discussed Gunnar Henderson, and as part of me doing that, I definitely did some research that, as I said on that podcast, was cherry picked specifically to make me look good. So Henderson, my friend, he is sitting right now with and this is over 2 levels this year, 21% walk rate, 18% K rate, a 1.014 OPS. That's good for a 177.16 WRC plus. There is no other prospect in minor league baseball with those numbers over the year. This is a guy, and I don't mean to one-up you here because you literally just said we both have him in our top 10. Upon updating, I'm not going to be surprised to see Gunnar Henderson in my top 5. Definitely top 8. Probably top 5. So I can see it happening. I'm not going to say it's not. And with Jordan Walker, that's another guy, like you said. I think you said this a couple of weeks ago. He just looks different in the box. This is a player who you look at and see just a visible difference in the way that he approaches the game versus his contemporaries, and especially when you consider his age compared to them and his approach is being so elite. It's elite. Yeah. It's an elite approach. And like you said, dude, the fact that it's his on-base skill and his plate discipline and his speed that's showing out right now and not the calling card, that should make you feel. So I like to think that Jordan Walker may listen to the Next Pick podcast and might have just said, this guy, I'll show him. I'll give him something to like. He likes stolen bases so much, I'll steal bases. I like you. I swear, Jordan Walker. I swear. I'm a fan. I swear. So, with you there for sure. Looking again at some more guys. O'Neal Cruz, who is number 7 on our list, just made it back to the show. I'm happy to see him. I'm sure you are too.
Absolutely. Love it.
Anthony Volpe, I know we've talked about him on a couple of episodes in a row now, but he is continuing to heat up, looking every bit the part of the top 10 guy he was preseason. I'm glad to see it. I won't bore anybody with more talk about Marco Luciano or Hunter Green. I feel like we talk about them and our differences between them every time. But another quick one, Vinny Pasquantino, still not up. The Italian Breakfast, still not up. We got to see him in the majors this year, or I will be a sad, sad boy. So, really quick, Peyton, I do have something that I'd like to ask. Can you pick 2 guys that I don't have ranked that you want to challenge me on? Because I want to do the same for you. I want to find 2 guys that I think you need to have in your top 100. And we need to talk about those guys.
Let me take a look.
Please do. So, again, part of what makes me tick in the bizarre brain I have is I like to have someone say to me, what's wrong with this? Or why is this in this way? Because even if I tell you it's this way and I don't see that I'll change it, the fact that something's brought up or the fact that I'm questioned makes me consider it more. So again, if the result doesn't change, maybe the process changes. Or maybe if the process doesn't change, the result changes. Because I'm brought more into tune with something that I wasn't previously aware of. And I think I mentioned to you earlier in a separate chat, like many good friends, Peyton, we have a conversation that is going simultaneously over like 4 separate platforms. So I don't remember where I said this to you, but I was like, there are no less than probably 8 or 9 guys you had ranked that I have to have on my list next time. So I'm expecting one name in particular from you. The other I'm not so sure about, but what I will do is I'll go ahead and spoil you on one that I think that you should be a little more hip to, or that I'd like to give you more of a cause to look into in the future. And that is going to be absolutely. That's going to be our number 60 prospect, my number 37 prospect, Ken Waldachuk for the Yankees. This is a guy that just makes sense to me. I've been following him for 2 years now, and this is a guy who started the year in Double-A for the Yankees. Started 6 games, won an average of 5 innings pitched for each game, struck out 41% of the batters that he faced, and had a 51% ground ball rate. He has been unreal. I think this is a guy that we can see this year in New York, should we see any injuries. I mean, obviously the Yankees would hope that their starters can stay healthy. And, I mean, of course, that would be ideal for their, hopes for a World Series. They've got wonderful starting pitching this year. But for the future, Waldichuk has got a amazing fastball. He's got a good changeup. He's got 4-pitch mix altogether, and I think he's a starter long term. We've seen people want to say that he would fit better in the bullpen because of some, mechanical differences, but I think I said this. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Yeah. Okay. In command and control, my exact phrasing was, why is different automatically bad? I love Waldichuk. I think you would really enjoy the kind of the funk and the dominance he displays on the mound. That's a guy that I'd like for you to take some closer looks at as we move ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's funny you bring him up. I have looked into him a lot, and the only reason that he was a just miss for me, but
Okay.
it was because of the relieving. It's a little bit quirky, and I'm just not fully bought in yet. And it's not as much that I don't believe he could be a starter. I don't know if the Yankees believe he's a starter. That's my biggest holdup, is I just really don't know what their game plan with him is going to be. Because I honestly see a guy that's plenty capable of starting. I just don't know if they see that. Does that make sense?
100%, man. And I think, honestly, that's something that I'm kind of even leaning into. We looked at last year, the Yankees were in contention. Well, they wanted to be. I think they were a little slow headed into the trade deadline last year, if I'm not mistaken. But they definitely brought it back around, and they were willing to trade from their glut of prospects kind of at the top. So I think Waldichuk is definitely not immune to being moved, especially, like we said, because their starting pitching is so strong, and they've had a good bullpen. I think that Waldichuk could be on the move either way. He's a starter in my eyes, at least until they tell me different. And even if they bring him up out of the bullpen, I'm still going to tell them they should start him because my opinion means so very much. All right, pal, have you got one for me that I need to look into?
Yeah, I do. I think, well, and this has already come up in the Discord, but, we've talked about him, and I'm sure you were already expecting this guy when you said that you're expecting someone, but where's the love for Taj Bradley? And did you just forget him, or do you truly is there something about him that you're, not fully in on yet? I'm just curious kind of what your thought process was there.
I don't mean to give the boring answer, but I just forgot him. It's as easy as I'm just a dummy. I want to say that how many prospects are playing in the minors right now? Would you say? I mean, 3, 4, 5,000.
Yeah, I mean it's multiple thousands. Yeah.
Sometimes my brain just gets too excited, and so in doing things like pushing up Ken Waldichuk and in I really like Jordan Balazovic. Is he listed? I forget about the forest looking for individual trees. Or I guess I forget about individual trees looking for the forest. Somebody much better with analogies knows what I'm talking about there. So, irregardlessly, yes, Bradley will be listed and with a pretty good spot, if I had to guess. I know there are pitchers that I prefer to him, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know you've said in the past I'm a little bit more willing to rank a pitcher higher than you. Let's see. Where is Bradley right now? Where do you have him ranked?
I have him, I want to say around 50.
54. Okay. So 54, you have him at 54. I didn't rank him. He's at 78. I think I could see Bradley slotting in about where you have him. I'm looking at some of my in that range for sure. Because I see Oswald Peraza for the Yankees is at 51, and that was even after dropping him significantly. And I think he's just done nothing but continue to fall, really, in my eyes. So, I mean, that's a safe spot to assume he could slot into. Right there again, Jordan Balazovic is I've got him at 54. You had Bradley at 54. And I think those are about even. Yeah, about even in my mind. I've been in on Balazovic for longer, but I think that's fair. So, yeah, somewhere in that range, you could probably expect to see me rank Mr. Taj Bradley, which would put him, higher than I'd say probably in the 50s, if not a little higher in our aggregate.
Yeah, on our aggregate. That's right. Significantly. So I think that's a really good point you bring up is some of these guys in our aggregate that one of us is, not listing at all, that's significantly, weighting out the totality of where they're coming in on the aggregate ranking. So, a guy like, who we were just talking about, Wildachuk, I don't have him ranked. You have him at like, what, 35, 37? And so he's sitting at 60 overall just because he's not even in my board. So that's kind of where, a guy like that, even, we were talking about Hassel. I think I had him probably in the 30s or something. I'm just bringing up similar, that those types of guys that we were talking about.
That's a great example, though, because looking at Hassel, you had him at 27. I had him at 99. And you were just saying, if Waldachuk had snuck onto your list, you said, he was the one that was cut kind of towards the end. So I'd say, would you say in your top 120?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, if he'd have made the list, which, he may or may not, whatever. No harm, no foul if he doesn't. Still make your next update. But if he'd have snuck on at 99, he would have been, elevated at least 5 or 6, 7 spots because Hassel.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's just really interesting to think about. I'll tell you another player real quick that I'd like to call out, and I know that we can speed it up on this guy because he's already in the majors, may not even be qualified next year, depending on what goes on here with the Texas Rangers. I'd like to talk about Ezekiel Duran. He has been somebody that's really impressed me since his call-up, and honestly, his call-up is what kind of turned me on to him completely. But this guy has stolen bases. He's come up with big hits. He's had a couple home runs, and is getting driven in and is driving in guys. He's got a 291 average on 55 at bats in the major league right now. I think Ezekiel Duran's a guy worth paying attention to, certainly. A former New York Yankee who was traded in, I don't remember what deal between the Yankees and Rangers. The insert trade here. And I've been into Duran. I think he's worth maybe some consideration, maybe back half 100, kind of thing for him.
Yeah.
Certainly an honorable mention for sure.
Certainly. Yeah, I think that, it's definitely a guy that's worth bringing up, as he was another guy that wasn't on my list, but I did consider. And for me, again, it comes back kind of the opposite end of what I was just talking about with Jordan Walker, is the strikeout to walk ratio, where, this guy's, like you mentioned, he's almost hitting 300, but he's walking 3% of the time and striking out 26% of the time. So that's where I'm like, okay, I feel like he's probably not going to be hitting 291 for much longer if he's going to continue that trend. Now, that to say, he's succeeding at the major league level. And I have guys listed who are playing A-ball. So you can make the argument, okay, if this guy is doing it at the highest level, so he probably deserves a lot more consideration than I'm giving him. So I definitely appreciate you throwing him out there. I think, again, the only thing for me is just that walk to strikeout is what I'm kind of looking at, and I kind of have that circle though. Okay, this is what I'd love to see this kind of teeter a little bit more towards a palpable number.
That's fair. I get that, man. I get that 100%. Have you got one more for me that I should take a look at?
I do. This guy is it's funny. So we just saw O'Neal Cruz get called up, finally, well overdue. And this guy is kind of built in the same mold as him. And he's kind of the next, kind of freak human build player. And that's Kevin Alcantara with the Cubs, who came over from the Yankees last year. And I realized that this guy was actually one of my biggest risers in this update. I had him all the way up to number 38. So really high praise on this guy. And, 19-year-old, just getting into A-ball. And just so far, what I've seen, I'm blown away. I think this guy had just the ceiling is, like I said, O'Neal Cruz-esque, where it's just the floor is obviously extremely low. Anytime you're talking about a 19-year-old teenager in A ball who, is just getting his first taste of professional baseball, you have to be a little bit weary. But just
Sure.
upside alone, it's hard to see other players in the minor leagues that have that kind of tantalizing upside. So that's kind of what I saw there with him. I was curious, is it just the age? Is it that you haven't seen a big enough sample size, or maybe a little bit of everything built in there? Or do you think the hit tool is probably not really going to pan out? I know there's a lot of people in the industry who think the hit tool is really risky here and he might just never hit, and that's going to hold him back. So I was curious for you, did he just miss? Was he someone that isn't really on your radar yet, but could be? Let's talk about him a little bit.
Sure. This is so bizarre to say, Peyton, and I know that you'll probably have experienced something similar in the past, but I've been in on Alcantara for a minute now. I think it may be a little bit of prospect fatigue because when I looked at him and his reports and look at kind of what we could expect from him going forward, I saw people say, this is humongous, tall, lanky guy, long levers, could be an absolute freak show kind of outfielder, can handle the ball. And, I think, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. He's 16 years old. We'll see what happens. But that's sick. Obviously, sweet, a power forward that's going to play baseball. Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of keeping an eye on his numbers over the past couple of years for, various home league drafts and just keeping up with prospects as I do, I haven't been blown back by him because the power hasn't really shown out. Now, all that being said, I guess that's led me to almost put blinders on him because now looking at his numbers, the power's here, dude. 251 plate appearances. He's got 10 home runs. He's hitting right now 275 with a BABIP of 352, and that kind of ratio plays in line with his career numbers. So it's not really like he's playing hot or running cold or anything. I think, if anything, it could go up a bit. I think that the hit tool is, from what I'm seeing, developing, certainly. The power coming around still, though, is really nice to see. I like that a lot. I'm looking for his fly ball numbers right now. So he's hitting right now 34.5% fly balls. Ground ball 42.6% of the time, 23% line drive. It's pretty good. Putting the ball in the air. It's on the ground more than anything, but still he's putting it in the air, which is what we need to have happen for him, for that raw to come out. I still think the speed is good. Yeah, this is a guy I definitely need to have in the mix, man, for sure. I think it must have been some kind of blinders just because of, the wait and see for so long, because I know that it was when he was with the Yankees. I was like, wow, this guy could be a freak, because I remember thinking, what if you had a Dominguez Alcantara outfield someday? And, these two guys that are like, endomorphic alien type players out there, what if they are just kind of insanely bizarre bodies, both in the outfield and just mashers? If the hit tool continues to come along, I think we're looking at a guy that could obviously be, top 50, even higher. I'd like to see some more from the hit tool. Probably what I'll say is this. Alcantara will be in the next top 100, probably towards the back end for me. But look out for 2023. That's a guy that, if everything pans out with this hit tool and he can continue to hit, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. He's stealing bases. The speed's fine. He's driving guys in. Well, so, he's put in a difficult position in the lineup, and he's hitting. Home runs are there. Most home runs he's hit at any one stop thus far for his career. Yeah, I can see it. I'm going to go ahead and write it down. Dig it. Anyway, there's a lot of these differences between my list and your list that we can see. And obviously, I think something fun to do would be anybody that's listening to this after the fact from our Discord, the SB Streamer Elite membership can get you into that Discord. Call these out. If you see something that's a big difference between Peyton and myself, hey, I
love that.
At Peyton or at Drew, there's some difference here. Or, hey, guys, you guys are both considerably lower on. I'm looking for a guy that me and you are both pretty low on. Who are we both low on? Who are we both low on? Don't know. Brennan Davis or here's
Yeah.
another one. Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos. Hey, why are y'all low on this guy? I'd love to tell you, but I kind of want to have you guys ask too. So if you are a member of our SP Streamer Dynasty Discord or SP Streamer Discord, please jump in. Ask us all about that. Ask us whatever questions you have because, as you know, this is an exclusive ranking list for the members of the SPS Discord. Peyton, how can somebody who may be listening at home, how can they get into this Discord if they're not currently a member?
There's a lot of ways to get involved. I think probably the easiest way is reach out to myself, reach out to you, reach out to Mr. SP Streamer himself, Michael Simeone.
Yeah.
We would love to help you get plugged in. And, like you said, I think that this ranking is just an awesome opportunity that we can give our listeners and, especially the people that are invested in the community that we've established on the Discord. And not just putting hey, here's 100 names and here's the aggregate, but truly putting, this is Peyton's list, this is Drew's list, this is where it totaled up. And they can even see, like you said, hey, wow, this guy's way higher on Peyton's list. Oh, this guy is significantly lower on both these guys' lists than a lot of industry lists I've seen. And, we want that Discord chat to be an opportunity and a place where they have that exclusivity to come to us and ask. And, we want to reward them for being a part of that community. So I just wanted to add that. I think that's just so awesome. And, it's been this year, especially, it's been so fun just having such a great group of writers. Our last host from our podcast, Eliezer, and, myself, you, so many other guys on the Dynasty side, but even on the non-Dynasty, we just have a, all-star roster right now in terms of riders. Michael really put in a ton of hard work this offseason, bringing in a ton of new riders. And, it's just a great community. Even the guys that aren't riders, they put in really great stuff. And, I love learning from those guys and listening to their thoughts and seeing what they post. And, they're always challenging me in the same way. So I think that's always fun.
Absolutely. You are correct, sir. This is a great community, and we can't say enough about it. Obviously, we are both heavily invested in the Dynasty channel. We both get involved in the main baseball channel and the, trade advice channels, rate my team, who should I pick up, look at this draft. Hey, what do you think of this offer? Lots of good stuff you can do there. Plus, just nice folks. And you get access to bonus things like you get an opportunity to see Michael's streaming ranks all times. You now will get our prospect ranks at all times for being a member. And you can see that, like Peyton said, you can reach out to me or Michael or Peyton. You can also go to sbstreamer.com/store. You can see membership options there. I think it's as low as $5 a month still, which is just, a cup of coffee, maybe a Big Mac.
Right.
Just, cut loose one of those, and then you've got some great fantasy baseball content to look forward to. Peyton, are you working on anything new right now, man, that we can look forward to?
I am. I'm working on putting together a kind of MLB Dynasty check-in. Some guys, you're kind of right now, you've been heading up a lot of the command and control, looking at some deeper level guys. And, I think it's important in Dynasty to follow who are guys right now that are in the MLB that are, shaking it up, guys that are flying up Dynasty ranks, a guy like we just had talked about at the beginning of this episode, guys like Kyle Wright, guys like Nestor Cortez, guys like Tommy Edman, Dansby Swanson, like all those guys that we're seeing go early in this midseason mock. I think, right now's the time to put an offer in, go get those guys. You don't want to wait till the off season when, every industry has put out their new Dynasty rankings and all of your league mates are like, oh no, this guy's top 100 now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sell Kyle Wright anymore. I would have sold high, but I'm fully bought in at this point because, so-and-so says he's top 100. So I think that's just something I've been thinking about, that I want to put a piece together and just, kind of highlight some guys who might be good targets to go, is it just a hot streak? Are they having a good year, or is something truly different with them? And are they worth, checking in on in dynasty circles? So
Certainly.
what about
That sounds
yourself?
great. Well, I'm really excited to read your article. I think that sounds so helpful to get in on the ground floor with some of these guys that are up and that are seeing playing time, and that you want to have an offer in on, or you at least want to have discussions on, because they're going to be guys to build your team around. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that from you. Of course, what's coming up for me at the end of the month, we're going to see June Command and Control. So that's going to be something cool. I started and stopped on a piece regarding the College World Series like 4 or 5 times. I had it where I had players that I really think could make an impact in the draft going forward, like guys that I think will be drafted and that people should be aware of before they make it to the pro ranks. But that never happened. It just never felt like the right time, and I couldn't make time to completely dive into doing the writing. But it happens. That happens. So real quickly, do you have a pick between Oklahoma or the winner of Texas A&M and Arkansas? Any selection?
Man, the Sooners are so hot. That's the crazy thing. I don't know if they're the best team, but they're just so hot. You
Well,
know
they're
what
not
I
the best
mean?
team because Tennessee didn't make the World Series.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean the best of the remaining teams.
Right. I'm with
We
you.
do know Tennessee was the best team. I will
Just
give you that.
just making sure we all knew. But yeah, I do think that you're right. As much as I hate to go against the SEC because A&M's been solid, Arkansas has looked good, and Arkansas put out Auburn. I would have loved to have seen Auburn, Oklahoma.
Mm.
So anyway, no, I think it'll probably be Oklahoma. I would have loved to have seen Sonny DeShara against Oklahoma because Oklahoma's got several guys I expect to go on day one
Mm.
of the MLB draft. And we'll have to get into that. It's coming up. We're going to have to start talking about draft stuff. Maybe within the
Right
next
around the
month, we'll have to
corner,
have an
man.
episode about the draft. So anyway, if you would, sir, please tell the fine people at home or listening on all the different places you can hear the SP Streamer podcast and specifically the Next Pick podcast. Can you tell these people where they can find you at home, sir?
They can find me on Twitter at Prospect Peyton as usual. And like we've mentioned on the Discord, always in there, always getting, people tagging me, but also even people DMing me. So love to always be helpful, love to chat with people, always down to just hear thoughts. And I think especially now that I've moved into my house and things are starting to at least calm down a little bit, I want to be a little bit more available for people, hopefully start pumping out some more content on the regular. What about yourself?
I'd love to see that, buddy. I sure would. You can certainly find me on Twitter at Drew is okay. I am all the time tweeting things on there that I'd love your feedback on. Would love you to follow me and Peyton, SP Streamer, anybody. We're doing some stuff. Like I said, I'm also going to be on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. It'll drop. I'm not really sure when. We just recorded it today, Wednesday the 22nd, talking about the Highlander Dynasty, where we discussed our underdog selections. So be sure to look out for that. And of course, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but also stay on the lookout for more of the SP Streamer podcast Full Count. Josh St. Marie just took over hosting duties and has made for a really interesting 3-person booth with Michael and Lauren. That's a podcast that I make sure to listen to every week.
That's right. They've done a good job. Josh is really fun host and, just really good guy overall. I think he's definitely a good fit for the bill there. Easy choice, in my opinion.
I think so too. They did shout out at the beginning of the last episode. Did you hear this? They were saying, Josh came on the air and he said, I think I'm the 3rd best fantasy baseball player on the staff at SP Streamer. And Michael was like, okay, who do you put as better than you? He said, well, first is Drew because he's the highest ranked of any of us in TGFBI. And I kind of, okay. Yeah, all right, Josh. I can let you go on about this, Josh. Keep talking. So that was certainly nice. I appreciate the shout out. Josh St. Marie, you're doing a wonderful job. Here's a shout out in return to the 3rd best fantasy player on our staff. So anyway, Peyton, it's been so nice talking with you, buddy. Hopefully we can do it again very soon. But until that time, guys, thank you so much for listening. Be nice to each other. And this has been our pick. And with the next pick, you are on the clock. We cannot wait to see what you do with it. Take care.